Hello War of the Visions fans, I'm Jackie Fox, and today we're going to be talking about Cipher as Final Fantasy VIII collaboration is with us. This is also going to bring upgrades for the other Final Fantasy VIII collaboration characters, which are going to be nice for them as they're getting both MA2s and Limit Burst upgrades. So it's going to be very powerful for them, but today we're talking about Cipher, and as you can see, about 1,000 people are using this guy in Guild Battle. If you want a point of comparison to that, because he is pretty popular, but he's about a third as popular as Advent Sephiroth, who is probably the high watermark of popularity in this game at this point. So, relatively popular character, definitely getting used in Guild Battle for sure. And we can also see that the adoption rate's really high in the top tier guilds are using crap out of this character. And we're going to be talking about a lot of teams that he really fits in well on. We can see some of the most popular teams here and kind of how they're doing. This was another one of the ones where I wasn't super impressed by the numbers for a lot of these teams. I'm a little bit cautious and skeptical of Cipher, honestly. One of the issues being like the lack of re-raise and courage. I mean, he should have a lot of damage mitigation. Maybe he won't need them as much. He's got a lot of other cool things going on in his kit. But the numbers here were just a little bit below what I was expecting. There were some teams that performed well, but first, let's go into looking at his kit so we can know what he needs, what he does, and why he's working well with these other characters. So slash resistance, penetration, reaction block rate on the master ability, AoE resistance, and accuracy on the dream ability. Not bad there. Let's look at these max stats. HP is quite high. Attack is also quite high. Pretty good dexterity, very high agility. A bit of base accuracy, which is nice. Little bit of base evasion. He can be built as an evasive character. That's a pretty powerful mechanism for him. But he's not hugely evasive. That luck stat isn't all that great. And 6 evasion is... it's what it is. It is what it is. There are evasion teams. I'm going to talk about one that or demi-evasion teams that he fits onto, but full evade probably isn't this guy's strength. But with the way that accuracy is rolling out, with the way that people aren't running it as much, they aren't seeing as many evasion teams, then as I pointed out in my Game 8 video, there's a lot of teams that are using evasion as a way to get one over on those people, even if the unit is only slightly evasive. This can still work in the meta that we're in right now, so worth noting, because I think a number of his builds are going to be going that way. So we have reduced physical damage, slash attack, and defense penetration here. It's going to be combo nicely to give him 60% base slash attack resistance penetration, 40 defense pen. That can go up to 80 if we increase it with this right here. We can also get more attack accuracy, AP consumption down. That looks really good for him. He's also immune to Frostbite, which is going to be helpful into Gilgamesh and into Tifa. It's not the biggest problem. There are a lot of ways to deal with AP. Frostbite maybe isn't the best, but it is pretty debilitating when it lands. So he's going to be resistant to that. Very resistant to AP degeneration strategies because of the AP consumption if he uses it. There's also an option for decreasing evasion rate by increasing attack and accuracy, but I really think that comparing these two, that 6% attack is not worth the decrease in evasion rate, especially when you could be getting AP consumption with it instead. This is just flatly worse than the other one. But another option that you might run is the extra agility and strike resistance. Strike isn't what it used to be. It's still pretty powerful. I'm still relatively successful with it. I don't think as many people are using it, so strike resistance isn't as appealing as it could be. But with 70 base agility, this character is very fast, and getting an additional 12% agility on top of that is just great. So what can I say? Chance to counter strike and slash damage. Thankfully, slash is most of the damage in the game. Otherwise, this would be pretty hit or miss. 40% reduction of damage is fairly high for that, so he can be really good into slash and strike characters, especially if you're running that strike resistance. But again, strike isn't probably what you want to counter with him. It's just an option. If strike were to become powerful into the future, though, this could be a helpful anti-character. So he can completely turn off reaction rate with his basic attack. He has AP auto restore for himself, so he's going to be another unit that you can punish with Blade Stream, but because of the AP consumption down potential for him, that might not be as backbreaking as it could be for other characters with AP Auto Restore. That might not be as backbreaking as other characters that we've seen with AP Auto Restore. He might be able to weather that, but in cases where that's not an issue, he's just going to have a really abundant AP supply, which is going to be great for him. This is also going to give him healing power down for 4 turns by 20%, or by a factor of 20, I guess. It's not really percentage based. This also so healing power down stacks turn to turn, but it can also stack between multiple sources, even with your own kit. So we're going to see an attack later that has more healing power down. Just remember that this 20 will stack on top of that. Dispel physical and magical damage reduction for self, dispel all debuffs for self, so this completely cleans him off. And 240 mod, decrease AoE resistance, shred 60%. This is an interesting AoE pattern. Reminds me of Bradley's Calculated Rend, which is really effective. Doesn't quite have the range of that though, but it is a pretty good pattern to be attacking with. This is the one that reduces healing power by 50% as well. So this is just going to really screw somebody over. It's going to open them up for AoE resistance, or it's going to open them up to AoE attacks, and it's also going to make it a lot harder for them to recover in between attacks the way that a lot of characters have been doing recently. But this attack gets upgraded to also remove auto revive, physical barriers, and it gets 1 more cast, so 4 casts on the skill. So he's going to be able to fight after fight, reduce people's healing power by a tremendous amount. This isn't going to be as effective as Curse. Curse is pretty absolute, but this also hits, like, it just happens. It procs. If you don't have debuff resistance, then this is going to hit you. It's not a status effect that can not proc. Also, he has 4 uses of this compared to 1 use on an LB. So in a guild battle situation, while it may not be as powerful, he can do it fight after fight, where Sephiroth will only be able to do it once. The next increased ability is going to give him a full damage reduction, 50% for 4 turns. This is pretty huge. Unless it can be removed, this is going to last for quite some time and maybe quite a number of hits. This is probably the attribute of himself that is most likely to keep him safe and mean that he won't need courage and re-raise very often. Also, reduce physical damage larger the area attack size, 25%, and magical as well. This is going to stack in with his passive to give him, I believe it's 40% of this larger area attack resistance. That's going to be pretty good for himself. And let's see, also, upon hit for allies, because this is his buddy buff, we're going to be decreasing debuff effect weakening by 30%, which is going to help people, this is going to help keep people from resisting his healing power down. Like I was saying, you can use debuff effect weakening to reduce that effect. That is one of the only forms of counterplay for this, I think, other than outright dodging it, in which case you may not get healing power down at all, which is another unique advantage for evasion here. But this is also going to make people a lot weaker to healing power down, and a lot of other debuffs, especially for newer characters that tend to have at least some amount of debuff effect weakening on themselves. Also, it's going to give him human resistance of 15 for 4 turns. This is going to stack in really, really heavily with his barrier. So between the 2 of these, it's 2 layers of basically all damage mitigation. If you thought that was all, though, you thought wrong. Man, this buff just keeps going. It's also going to give you a 50% HP threshold heal, and it's going to allow you to absorb 50% of damage done for 4 turns, which is on par with June and on par with Tifa. Both of them recover their HP really effectively. Now, if you were saying to yourself, man, this character does seem to have some accuracy, but maybe not the most accurate character in the world, might be cool if they got a guaranteed hit. Yep, they got a guaranteed hit AoE, so this could hit multiple characters. It's a little shifty in terms of evasion hunting, but 3 casts. If he runs out in a fight where he's just completely outmatched, this could be bad. So maybe not running him into 2 evasion teams in a row, but I think you could probably deal with 1 with this. Maybe. He would need some help from the rest of his team, of course. Defense shred, nice to see. Physical damage reduction and inflicting slow, those are pretty cool. Let's see what we have in our sub-jobs. This is a strong one. Pierce-based. Attack, defense, and protect is pretty cool. HP absorbing. See, we got drain jump. We've also got a stun move. Move and agility up. This could be pretty good for him. Except if he's using this first, I mean, the agility up, great. The movement up in combination with that could cause him to skip some buff turns, and that could be unfortunate. AoE resistance down on this attack. Nowhere near his AoE shred. I wouldn't use this at all. I'd rather use the AoE shred. Dispel buffs. Interesting, but he's not really a support unit. I wouldn't want him wasting a turn doing this. Nightblade is a very old sub-job. Another chance to stun, a chance to remove people's AP by a very strong measure. The AI doesn't really value attacking people's AP though. This is something that you will have to get him to do in manual, but it could be pretty debilitating. This could also work really well in PvE. Skills like this have been really useful in PvE since forever. Reduce counter chance by 100%. So if you really want him to reduce counter chance, and you want a stronger attack to do this with than his basic attack, this attack would work for you. It also decreases healing power by 40%. So this is maiming slash. This might actually make sense for him. This synergizes well into his kit, giving him another option to further decrease healing power. With his buff, this would be a 60% or 60 point reduction in healing power. So this could be really powerful. Usually I'm not a big fan of maiming slash. It's got some range though, so this could be a really strong attack on him. Maybe even worth running this sub-job for, even though there's some pretty good stuff in the Lancer one. And then looking at our limit burst, is another reason he doesn't need like a full dispel. He's got dispel all buffs, dispel haste, dispel physical damage, magical damage increase for target, decrease single target resistance by 60% for 3 turns. Decent range, but this is a single target attack, as you would guess from that shred. 240 mod, so big dark slash damage, and then we're going to restore AP by 10 for self. So give him a little bit of AP rebate here. So now that we kind of understand how he works, let's look at the teams that he's on. And in terms of our most used team, that was Advent Children, Cloud, and Lotus Mage Fina for sure. And that did okay. Second place was June, the Spring Celestial, and Cloud from Advent Children. I think Cloud makes a much better combination here than June does. And then the third most team was Ashen Mont and Advent Children Sephiroth. So in terms of like who I think his key partners are, Shurika and Luciel are on his best team. Like this team, let me just show you one more time, because it's kind of impressive how much this team dominated. Total score 40.2 points. Next was 8 points lower, and then we have the 30s, and then we just drop into the 20s. So there were a few teams that even made it into the 30s. 2 out of 3 of them involved Shurika, but the one that made it all the way to 40 was Luciel and Shurika. So the really powerful combination. I think Shurika, from what I've seen, works pretty well with Luciel, but I think especially for Cipher, just having someone who can give him re-raise is a big deal. Also, I think that preloading him with heals can be helpful for him. Some of the heals he already has, so some of the heals he may not necessarily need. I don't think regen's going to be a big deal for him because he has the HP absorb. I think that'll be more than enough for that. But definitely the re-raise. I think there is room for a different character to be good here. So like maybe a more offensively built character could work even better with him that still has a double re-raise, like Veritas of the Waters, but people are using her massively. So Luciel is the option we've got. Then there's Advent Children Cloud. So Advent Children Cloud I think works really well on these teams because he's another, well, Cipher has a lot of self-healing as we noted, but Cloud doesn't. I think this makes Cloud a really good combination with Luciel. So, for instance, the 5th most used team was Cloud, Advent Children, and Luciel. This came in 3rd on defense, and I think Cloud really benefits from Luciel's heals in a way that Cipher doesn't necessarily need, and Cipher benefits from the re-raise in a way that Cloud doesn't necessarily need. So Luciel ends up having people to help on both sides of that team. I think that really makes this a great application for Luciel herself. And then there's Ashenmont. Ashenmont is just very powerful, could always appreciate a bit more healing power down, because he can do incredible damage. Like, he's probably one of the better damage dealers in the game, other than June the Spring Celestial or Cloud of Advent Children. And I think, you know, ensuring his victory with Cipher works in a lot of the same ways that running Advent Children Sephiroth alongside Ashenmont did. I just think this is going to be a little bit more consistent than that strategy, and maybe with other characters it could be even better. Looking at our top 5 offensive teams, we have Lucio and Shurika, as I mentioned, Gilgamesh, new Gilgamesh, Scourgebreaker, Gilgamesh, and Shurika was the second place team on offense. Then we had Lucio the Crystal Bullet and Ashenmont. This seems to be a warrior-based team with the exception of Ashenmont, and it was surprisingly effective. I didn't come into this expecting this team to be good at all, especially because Ashenmont's kind of an off character on it, so this isn't going to be bringing out the max potential of Ashenmont, and I think he's a very strong character, but it does bring out a very strong synergy between Lucio and Cipher, and I guess there just isn't a third warrior that really makes this team work in the same way that Ashenmont does, so fair enough. Advent Children, Sephiroth, and Luciel. I can definitely see Advent Children, Sephiroth benefiting from Luciel a bit, and then Ashenmont and Luciel. So lots of Shurika, lots of Luciel in here, lots of Ashenmont, just like I was getting at. No Cloud on this one. However, Cloud did do well on defense. So on defense, we have Luciel and Shurika in first again. Vivian Roth. So this guy is replacing Sephiroth on that team. So we should expect to be seeing a comeback of at least Vivian Roth. Like, Sephiroth may not make the same recovery, or he may not make it on this team. I think there's other teams that he can recover on. But this was 4th in use and also just 4th best overall, 2nd on defense. Really good team. I think this could make the Dark team shine again, at least on defense. It didn't do nearly as well on offense. Tied for second was Advent Children, Cloud, and Lotus Mage Fina. So this is going to be a mostly light team with Cipher. And then third place, we have Cloud of Advent Children and Luciel. I think this is, again, just a really good combination for allowing Luciel to do her best. And then we have Gilgamesh the Scourgebreaker and Shurika for a really heavy-hitting magic team in general. And there aren't a lot of great magic teams out right now. This is one of the things that's making Gilgamesh a better character than maybe he should be, because people just aren't building their defenses against magical damage, and he does so much of it. So really good character. But let's look at I did a top 12 this time. So obviously Luciel, Shurika, that was my number 1 team. They were actually the 12th most used. So this was one of those cases where I found the best team in the low ranks. Also, for these 3 teams that we're going to be talking about first, second, and third, we should mention that they are kind of outliers in a lot of ways, which might not make this the most reliable data. If more people use these teams, maybe they wouldn't perform so well. Maybe it's because they're being used in a specific scenario where they're good that they're outperforming, because there aren't many people using these 3 teams at least. But they are doing well, and I think that it's definitely worth trying it out. I've noticed a number of teams looking at the data like this that have gone on to become super dominant, and I think that at least Luciel, Shurika, and Cipher could be a big deal, because this just dominated on offense and defense, posting just consistently bigger numbers than anything else here, and just easily being the most powerful team here, right? So 11th most used and 2nd most powerful was Gilgamesh, the Scourgebreaker, and Shurika. This came in 2nd on offense and 4th on defense, so a bit of a drop-off on D, but really nipping at the heels on offense. 3rd place on offense was Lucio the Crystalborn and Ashenmont. This was 3rd on offense and 3rd generally, 10th most used. 4th and 4th, 2nd on defense, Vivian Roth. 5th best most used team. This is the one that everybody's on. This is basically the meme. It's doing all right on defense, but Advent Children, Cloud, and Lotus Mage Fina. frankly, I don't think the reason I didn't list Lotus Mage Fina, well, she is a powerful healer, and I think maybe he could use some support that way. She doesn't have re-raise. She has the healing that he doesn't need in a lot of ways, whereas I think at least the re-raise is super helpful for him. Although Luciel, while I think Lotus Mage Fina is probably a better support, I think that doesn't hold as true for Cipher. Coming in 6th place and 9th most used overall, Bradley and Ashen Mont. This is a more evasive team. If I'm just guessing, all the teams that you might run a more evasive Cipher on, I think it's probably this one. It could also be this team here, came in 7th, 8th most used, Advent Children, Sephiroth, and Luciel. Advent Children Sephiroth often gets run as an evasive unit as well, just kind of like Bradley. So I think that this team could be tilted evasively and be pretty powerful as well. Cloud, Advent Children, and Luciel, 5th most used team, 8th best in the data. And, you know, like, I'm filtering out, I'm usually putting in like the top 8 teams in terms of usage, and then I start looking for the best numbers. That's why sometimes the lower used teams end up being the better ones. But I am skipping a number of teams here. So even if it's less used or even if it's lower in this rank, it's still beating a lot of teams. You could do a lot worse than having the 9th best Cipher team. So Ashen Mont and Luciel, that could work for you. 10th best, but 3rd most used. This was a very popular team. Ashen Mont and Advent Children Sephiroth. This is just brutal. You're like maximally denying them healing while also putting out a lot of damage through Ashen Mont, through Cipher, and the support and breaking of Advent Children Sephiroth is just going to enable their damage even further. So this is really the big damage combination. It's a lot of good units together, but there isn't a strong synergy, and they don't perform as consistently as other teams, but they are capable of breaking into the 4 range for offense. So that's not bad. It wasn't good enough really to rank in anything, but it's not bad. Then we have the Greatsword team, which is Joom and Cloud. This is the 2nd most used team, but it's even worse, actually. Yeah, these are popular characters to play him with, popular characters, and it's just easy, as this is a popular team, to swap in a new character and call it good. But I don't think this team is really as well thought through as some of the other ones were. It's serviceable, it's strong, but you'd probably just do better off with the 3rd Greatsword unit, to be honest with you. I'm not really sure Cipher brings a lot to this team. I think this team could probably perform better with like Astrius to Erudite Bolt and a better BC spread. And then 7th most used and 12th in the data. This one did manage to break into the 4 once on offense, but had a pretty poor defensive showing and just kind of let me down. But that would be Ashen Mont, Advent Children, Cloud, and Cipher. So similar thing here, less Sephiroth to the Ashen Mont Sephiroth team. Less Sephiroth, more Cloud, so more damage and less denial. Actually, I would imagine that this team should be better than the Sephiroth version, because I don't think you need Cipher and Curse, but maybe that redundancy is really working for people, because there are teams out there that are just really annoyingly stubborn about restoring their own HP, and having as many ways to deal with that in your kit as possible could be worth it. But then again, all of these teams with Advent Children Sephiroth that overlap is not ranking in the top 6. Like, there are definitely better things to do than be redundant in that way. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that compared to some of the other options that you could be playing him with Sephiroth just isn't ideal. Instead, you probably want characters like Luciel, Shurika, Gilgamesh the Scourgebreaker, Ashen Mont, or Lucio the Crystalborn in some cases. That could be an interesting combination. And into the future, should we get another warrior that's really good, you might see Ashen Mont actually drop off that team and it become a bit more powerful and consistent due to lining up more consistently and better with its vision cards. But we are going to need another warrior to make that happen, because the warriors that we currently have just aren't quite good enough. The unit pool is not quite there. So, with all that being said, thank you so much for watching. Remember, there is a link in the description that will lead you to the rest of the Jackie Fox Media Empire. I'm posting a new podcast only this week. If you would like to check out my podcast, Politically Non-Binary, on Spotify, there will be a link in the link tree that you can find that. Also, ways to donate to the channel, buy my books, as I am a fiction writer. That's how I make money. That's why these videos don't have ads on them, by the way. I'm hoping you'll buy my book instead. So if you appreciate that I haven't put ads on these videos, maybe just throw me a couple dollars by either making a donation or checking out one of those books, maybe purchasing a book off of Amazon. Those are great ways to support the channel. I do spend my time doing this, so if you want to reward me for that time, that's kind of up to you. I'm at your mercy, but hey, that'd be nice, right? I'd appreciate it for certain. But all that being said, the free-to-play option for YouTube is to like, subscribe, and leave me juicy comments to chow down on and regurgitate in future comment response videos. But with all that being said, I'll see you in the next one.